It's been 3 months since we traded our comfortable life and a perfectly good house for the open road with our 2 horses. We showed you the highs and lows of launching this crazy adventure, from renovating our horse trailer to learning how to manage the horses on the go. We ended the first month tired, excited, and wondering if we had made the right choice. But we had no idea just how much more interesting and difficult things were about to get. Before we left, a major source of our income was our website that brought in about $8,000 a month from the traffic we received. More than enough to cover our living expenses and fuel this dream of life on the road. But suddenly, because of Google's algorithm changes, we watched the website plummet to just about $300 a month. The timing could not have been worse. Here we were on the road, already committed to traveling with 2 horses, and questioning now if we could even afford it. Was this trip worth the financial investment? Was it worth sacrificing our comfortable home, working odd hours, and managing the part-time job that is caring for 2 horses on the road? We decided that if we wanted to keep going, we had to make some serious changes. We put ourselves on a strict budget. We stopped eating out entirely, though honestly, being camped miles away from civilization helps curb the temptation. We cut any miscellaneous business costs we could do without. And we traded pricey private campgrounds, which were sometimes $60 a night, for state and federal campgrounds that cost as little as $6 or $7 a night. With primitive campgrounds comes new challenges. Corrals aren't always available, meaning you have to rely on portable fencing or high lines instead. At one of our first primitive campgrounds, the horses had to stay overnight on a high line for the very first time, something they'd both been iffy about in training. It took a lot of trial and error, but we got Ruach, he can move on this line. We got his hay, got his water. So unbeknownst to us, we have stumbled upon some type of horse event festival. I'm also a little nervous to leave them alone all night. I'm going to be sleeping in the truck so I can just quickly see them and also get up if I need to and get out to them. Okay, one last good night check. Tuck. There you go, baby. But surprisingly, the horses handle it like pros. By dawn, I realized we had a new normal. Setting up high lines or fences, trusting the horses, and hoping they'd be calm enough for us to get some sleep. We'd hoped to chase warm weather south as winter approached, but the cold found us much sooner than expected. Listen. Yeah. That thing went off at 11 p.m., at 3:30 a.m., and now it's going off now. It's basically because we've been living primitively and we haven't had a generator going or anything. The battery in the trailer is dying, and so it will set off the carbon monoxide detector. Temperatures dipped into the low 30s, and of course, our generator quit working during one of the chilliest weeks we'd had so far. For about a week, we lived by a fire. No heat, no electricity, no hot water. We went 12 days without a proper shower and learned to cook over open flames, which honestly I found kind of fun. And while I liked feeling as if I was living 200 years in the past, we needed a new generator in order to access the internet and work. So we had to buy a new generator, which ended up ruining our carefully planned budget for the month. So all we could do was hope for better luck the next month. In addition to choosing primitive campgrounds, we decided to stay longer at each campground. This would save money on diesel, reduce travel days, and free up more time to focus on work. We hunkered down for 2 weeks at Warden Station Horse Campground in northern Alabama. This place was desolate, beautiful, and had some of the most fun trails we'd been on. In the mornings, we'd take care of school and work, and our afternoons were spent riding as many of the trails around us as we could. The closest town was an hour away, and our only connection to the outside world was our Starlink internet that could only be used when our generator was running. We turned off the generator around 9 each night, plunging us into complete quiet. On the night of the 2024 presidential election, we had no idea what was happening in the outside world once the generator shut down. It was oddly peaceful. We got the news in the morning, only after doing our morning chores and taking a walk. The world could have been in complete turmoil, and we would have had no idea. With a little bit more time on my hands now, Warden Station seemed like the perfect place to continue Ruach's training. I started introducing him to his surcingle and lightly getting him used to weight on his back. He had his fair share of baby moments. Now I'm just gonna lunge him around me a little bit. Now. But he ultimately got the hang of things. Once he did good with the surcingle, I decided to up the stakes by briefly getting on him, and I'm happy to say that he handled it better than I could have hoped. Why did I suddenly get nervous? Good. Getting on any horse for the first time is exhilarating, and it just made me excited about our future together. Making it to Florida was a huge milestone. We'd survived 3 months on the road, and our November was spent living almost completely off the grid, and somehow we made it work. We'd tested ourselves physically, financially, and emotionally, and had come out stronger. But the road was about to throw us a bigger challenge than we'd ever faced. At another remote campground, 30 minutes from civilization, our worst nightmare happened. I went outside to feed the boys their dinner and found Tucker lying on the ground colicking. We immediately jumped into action. Colin leading Tucker to keep him from laying down, while I called every vet I could find. We had no choice but to haul him an hour and a half to Ocala, Florida for emergency care. I was terrified. Was this my fault? Had traveling done this to him? Luckily, Tucker's colic was mild, but we left him at the vet's for 2 more nights to be sure. Walking away and leaving him there felt like my heart was ripping in half. The $1,600 vet bill only added to our mounting concerns. We began to wonder, should we keep going? Or was it time to just call it quits? We prayed, we debated, and we gave ourselves a month to decide. Realistically, Tucker's colic could have happened anywhere, on the road or at home. Horses adapt once they understand the routine. But was I putting them at unnecessary risk? Was I a terrible owner for dragging them across state lines? Then the unexpected happened. A stranger, someone we'd never ever met in person, paid Tucker's entire vet bill. I was in shock. This act of kindness was an answer to prayer and exactly what we needed to encourage us to keep going. If someone else believed in our adventure enough to help us in such a big way, maybe we should believe in it too. As much as this trip had been about adventure, horses, and travel, it had just as much been about people. I could fill a book with the encounters we've had with people we barely know going out of their way to help us. Strangers offering their horses' winter blanket to me to keep my horses warm in the cold. Stacia, who we met at a campground in New York, texts me and checks up on me every now and then to see how we're doing. People I had never met before let us crash at their house while we visited friends for Thanksgiving. The camp hosts Debbie and Russ, who, while they didn't have much experience with horses, went out of their way to help us when Tucker was colicking. And the person who paid our vet bill, you know who you are, and thank you. I will never forget your kindness. As much as I'd wanted to quit sometimes, I also wanted to keep going. Up until then, we'd been wandering, spur of the moment, wherever we wanted to, with no real goal in mind. But if we were going to keep going, we needed a goal. It would mark an end to the trip where we could feel satisfied with what we had accomplished. So what would it be? Of course, getting out west was important. What was the furthest west we could go? I started researching. Then I found it. Nehalem Bay State Park in Oregon, right on the Pacific Ocean, the farthest west we could go. We could camp near the beach and then ride the horses into the cool waters of the Pacific. When their hooves touched the waves, we would have achieved our goal, what we set out to do, over 3,000 miles away. So here we are, in Florida for the month, regrouping and preparing for the next phase, getting our finances in order, and launching some new work projects. We cannot wait to start heading west. The desert, the mountains, the long stretches of highway, it's all uncharted territory for us. But after everything we've overcome, we feel ready. This is our life now, living out of a horse trailer, relying on God's guidance, belief in ourselves, and the strength of our horses. It's challenging, rewarding, and deeply fulfilling, and we're thankful for every step of the journey.